Hi, this is Mike Mock. It's Sunday, November 20th, and I've got Lansing Trade Group's video for you. This is a special video recording on Sunday afternoon, and basically want to take a look back here. It's been 8 days since the election of Donald Trump became apparent. He's now going to be our 45th U.S. president, and in those 8 days, it's been interesting that the grain markets really haven't done much. If you go back to where we closed Thursday night, where we were midday Friday, we were basically unchanged across the grain space relative to where we were going into the election day. But obviously there's been lots of volatility in other markets, and we could talk about that all day. But today we want to focus on the relationship of the U.S. dollar and its influence on the commodity space as a whole. So we're going to start out with some charts. The first one I've got is a 5-year look at the DXY, which is the U.S. currency weighted against a basket of 16 other currencies. And you can see we had that huge run-up in calendar year 2014 and 15, and then have leveled off since that time. What's interesting about the trade since the morning of the 9th of November is how dramatically the dollar has run and now broken out of that trading range. So this is the highest the U.S. currency has traded against this basket since April of 2013. So a huge move up, and it's important that we monitor this. Now, the reason why is the second chart shows the commodity index, and you can see the inverse relationship, how in 2014 and 15, as the dollar was rallying into new highs, the commodity space as a whole was breaking down. Since that time, as the dollar has leveled off, so have commodities trying to find a bottom, and we've seen individual commodities outperform others, but the space as a whole still has stuck going sideways. And the concern that we have is with the dollar breaking out here to the top, will that lead to another breakdown in the commodity space as a whole? And that's yet to be determined, but something that needs to be watched. Now, the third chart that we've got is a pie chart of the index broken down. And you can see that of the 16 in the basket, it's really heavily weighted to the euro, to the yen, and to the British pound. So sometimes you have to go through the individual currency crosses, as they're known, to better evaluate. So the first one we've got here for you is the Brazilian real, and this is obviously every U.S. farmer is aware of how Brazil is a huge competitor, not just soybeans anymore, but also corn. And you can see that over the last 10 years how much the Brazilian real has weakened. Even though it has come off its lows a bit, it's still very cheap from where we were, say, 5 or 6 years ago. So the U.S. farmer's in a bind relative to a southern hemisphere competitor, because not only have grain prices in Chicago gone down over the last 5 years, but his currency situation is significantly different than what the Brazilian farmer faces. The next chart's the Argentine peso. You can see the same situation there. The peso very, very weak here. Again, puts them in a much better advantage, and that's why there are times we've seen here recently where it actually made sense to import South American product into the U.S. because the purchasing power of the dollar was so much stronger relative to the foreign competitors. We've got these other charts here for you as well. You can see that if you take a look at the Canadian dollar, our friends up north also have an advantage. They raise a lot of wheat, for example. They have not been hurt because of the currency the way the U.S. wheat grower has. A similar story with the Australian dollar, which we have here for you too. So again, you can see the advantages that those folks have, growers in those countries. And then the Russian ruble has improved here recently. Some of that, I think, is, Mr. Putin is a strong man, and the fact that crude oil has come off its lows. But again, still from a historical perspective, the ruble is still cheap. And the euro, and again, we face competition in the world markets with the European growers too, also very, very cheap. So this presents a serious problem for our grower. This is why we think the grower has to be defensive in his posturing, in how he moves forward with his marketing program. When he has an opportunity to lock something in the black, he has to take advantage of that. That's why we want to take advantage of any kind of push that we get this week to clean up old crop inventories and beans, to get it down to gambling stocks. In the case of corn, we've got a lot of catch-up sales to make. We want to take advantage of that. And even in the new crop for both corn and soybeans, we want to take a good hard look at minimum price kind of approaches. Our favorites are the min-max averaging. And we kind of wrap up here with American Gothic. This is a photograph, a painting really, that's 90 years old, or darn near 90 years old. We don't mean to make light of it, but we do think that the American farmer has a bullseye painted on him, and largely because of these currencies and the fact that he's being pressed to lower his production costs. He's being pressed to figure out ways to manage in a tight margin environment, much, much different than his foreign competitor. That's all I got for you now. You have a great week. I'll talk to you first thing in the morning.